Okay, so here we are, step 6 in our Deep Resilience program, and welcome everybody. I won't go through all the previous steps, but here they are, and the focus for this evening is step 6, open awareness, recognizing open awareness. Well, first of all, what is this open awareness that we're talking about? And why is it a valuable aspect of deep resilience, of luminous resilience, of self-care 2.0? How can we recognize this? And how, over time, can we learn to rest in this? And then to maybe, for at least periods of time, actually come from this place, listen from this place, be present from this place in our lives and in our interaction with others. I'm going to give a little kind of talk at the start, hand over to Radley, who's going to give a little talk, and then lead us in a practice, and then we'll have a period of discussion. And Andrew, I might call on you at the start of that, just if you'd like to have a kind of response to anything that struck you from our presentation. So once again, you can tell I really love this image because for me it pulls together so much the Celtic three worlds, which I'm not going to talk about again tonight, but those three concentric circles of what's above the surface, what's in space and time, the manifest world, then the middle world of the roots, and that's the world of the unconscious, of the imagination, of dreams, of visions, and then the inner core, the inner luminous core, the essence of being. And in a way, our journey is a journey to luminous resilience, which is another way of talking about deep resilience, which is another way of talking about self-care 2.0. And it's really a journey into deeper and deeper levels of rooting and then manifesting as radiance from our deepest rooting in the luminous essence of being, which is what we're focusing on tonight. It's all about the roots. So this is a little redwood sapling, and it's almost like a little bonsai redwood. It's kind of sad in a way to see a redwood in a little jar like this. It's not meant to be there. But on the other hand, that's how a lot of redwoods begin before they're transplanted into the wild. But, you know, the redwood in the pot is caring for that redwood, giving it enough water, making sure it gets some light, maybe feeding it from time to time. That's really like self-care 1.0, kind of taking care of a potted redwood. And there's value in that. We can keep the little sapling alive. But the roots of the redwood can't go anywhere. You can see they're already growing out of the base of that container and coming up the sides. It's kind of beginning to become root bound, as you see has happened here in this particular sapling, which isn't looking so healthy because it's not meant to be there. Ultimately, we can only get so far with self-care 1.0. It's like looking after a potted plant. And if we simply rely on looking after ourselves as we would look after a potted plant, as in, you know, kind of as a metaphor for looking after ourselves in isolation, if that's how we practice self-care, as if it's just about looking after ourselves as isolated entities, over time, with continued stress and continued exposure to stress, we'll burn out, and we'll dry out, and we'll not do so well as this little redwood sapling. If, on the other hand, we take that little sapling and we take it into a redwood forest and we plant it in the black, moist earth of the forest among the elders who are standing in witness in the background, over time it grows into this beautiful redwood you see in the background here, part of the deeper web, part of the wider matrix. Its roots are now part of the forest. And so that's really what we mean by Self-Care 2.0, by deep resilience, by luminous resilience, coming into that deeper rootedness and that deeper resilience. And we come into this deeper luminous resilience by being rooted in three kind of ways. And I'm repeating kind of what I shared last week, but for those of you who are here for the first time, or anyway, going over it again, there are one or two new things I wanted to say about this also. So the three kind of roots are the roots that appear just under the surface of the forest. Those are the lateral roots. The second kind of roots are the roots that are the deepest roots, where the roots go down and really intermingle with the mycorrhizal web. And then the third kind of roots, which is what we're focusing on this evening, is in the luminous deep. So looking at that first kind of roots and rootedness, and remembering kind of the teaching of the redwoods, how they have this incredible lateral rooting system, and remembering that this is about healing connections, and it's about the point I wanted to emphasize tonight is it's about the healing connections I make. So the healing connections we make. So we're still there as the agent who's making connections. The I is still very much present and kind of taking executive action to kind of notice, where are my lateral roots? What is my community? What are my relational roots? What are the relationships that matter to me in my personal life? How am I connected through my senses, through nature connection, my sit spot, the place, the landscape where I live, how familiar am I with it? Are there other healing connections that bring me into a sense of something bigger than my isolated self? So it's a step into that bigger landscape, but I'm still doing it as the agent. And, and we need that agency. And that agency, we sometimes call the ego as the executive part of the psyche who's making that interaction. The second kind of rootedness is that interface between the deep roots of the trees and the mycelia of the mycorrhizal network. And mycorrhizal literally means mycor, fungus, rhizal, root. It's a root fungus because the little tiny rootlets that are so fine just seamlessly blend with the fungal hyphae in the mycorrhizal network, and that's the structural component of it. But the biological dynamic component of it is that it's something that's continuously in flux. It's in flow, and it's a kind of a tidal flow. There's a flowing out and a flowing in. The flowing out from the tree is with sugar that flows into the fungi, which feeds the fungal network. In return, the fungal network is drawing up water from the soil and minerals from the soil and feeding them back into the tree. And so there is this mycorrhizal rooting, which is about the reciprocal flow. And it's a reciprocal flow of no separate self. So with the first kind of roots, the lateral roots, there is still an I that is connecting, making those connections. when we come into this reciprocal flow, there is no longer a separate self. We're now part of a bigger dynamic matrix. And we're in a flow. We're in this give and take flow of reciprocity. And there's no more separateness. We're indivisibly part of something bigger. So coming into an experience of that, and you remember, so I'll come back to that in a moment, I think. So the third kind of rooting, which is where we are tonight, is rooting in and as the luminous deep. But how do we do this? How do we? Because this is, and Radley will say more about this in a moment, but it's really not easy to talk about this luminous core at the center of this three world, three layers of the forest.
Come on out. Yeah, come on out.
Maybe somebody could just mute your mic there. Sounds like somebody with a cat or a dog. So how do we do this? How do we talk about this, and how do we come into this? And I just want to say a couple of things about it. I think there are many, many ways of coming into this luminous deep, the luminous essence, the ground of being. We come into this spontaneously at sort of peak moments, at moments of flow. There may be moments we look back on our life and we think, goodness, that was a moment when I just felt so much part of something, and just kind of maybe an experience of that luminosity, maybe the vastness of it all. So it happens as a kind of an unpredictable part of our lived experience. But there are pathways to it, and the great spiritual traditions, particularly the great mystical spiritual traditions, have taken a particular interest on these pathways. How can we kind of, what are breadcrumbs that we can follow that can take us into the luminous deep? And the two that we focus on, because we found them particularly powerful for ourselves, as do so many others, are through deep nature connection and through direct pointing out, which Radley will talk more about. And I just want to say a few words about this. I talked about it last week in terms of reciprocity, but how can that surrender to reciprocity, lead us into the luminous deep? Really, surrender is the key. Letting the give and take of life, that flow, that tidal flux, that pulse, that intake and outtake of breath, letting that draw us into oneness with it. And that's what that breathing with leaf practice was about last week, is just one possible a practice little way of doing that. But when we go and sit in our sit spot and we tune in through our senses, and we connect through our senses, and then we rest back into deep reciprocity and deep listening, and just allow ourselves to be drawn into the bird song, or allow ourselves to be drawn into the greenness of the leaf, or allow ourselves to be drawn into the delicacy of a spider's web. Just, that is that transition into the flux and flow of reciprocity. But it doesn't stop there. The next step is then recognizing the glow of the flow. So letting your mind rest back into the background of its own awareness, and noticing the vastness, noticing some of the qualities of awareness when you just rest back into it. Noticing awareness itself. Turning your awareness on awareness. So you have awareness of awareness, and then just resting back into that. So that's how we can come in there. Rooting as becoming one with the luminous essence of being, and then resting back into this. And I just wanted, as I come to the end of my comments, I've just wanted to share this with you. So this is the little redwood I've talked about so often. You can see its black trunk coming through at the base there. And here it is on a misty morning when I was up there a couple of months ago. But what I want to point out, it's a little movie, I'm just going to play it and just listen to the song. But just, I want to share a teaching I received, an unexpected teaching I received as I watched the redwood, listened to the bird song, and there was a gentle rain falling. I don't know if you can hear it. What I hadn't noticed all along, and what I noticed this time, was the rock in the background, this huge monolith. I'm not sure if it's granite. It's certainly millions, if not possibly billions of years old. If it's granite, it's probably billions of years old. This was there all the time in the background. And let me just play you this little clip. And for me, this was the teaching that I received this time when I was there, was from the rock. This presence that's always there in the background, but that I hadn't noticed because I was so focused on the foreground. But that's like awareness. It's always right here. It's always right there, just right here in the background. Only a moment of noticing away. And so the other way into the luminous essence of being is through direct pointing out. And direct pointing out are non-dual awareness practices that draw on teachings from the Mahayana and Vajrayana traditions of Tibetan Buddhism. And my final point, I just wanted to show this image. These are prayer bundles, Native American prayer bundles. And I show them because my teacher, Wolf Wapipa, says we're in a time of such crisis in our planetary time that we're all living through at the moment, that we need all the spiritual traditions to sort of come together. We need the essence and the best of all the spiritual traditions to come together. And that's what he means when he talks about the bundles are returning. And he brings the fire stones in the fire pit one by one to touch this central stone. So for me, non-dual indigenous teachings like nature connection, deep nature connection, and non-dual Tibetan teachings are like two hands in prayer or namaste, and something synergistic happens when we practice them together. So over now to Radley.
All right. Those practices that I wanted to talk to you tonight, which point us to this luminous core, come from the Tibetan Mahamudra or Dzogchen style practices. And, some people could, like some adept Tibetans or Tibetans who have a very quiet mind, could just be quiet and go into this background of luminous awareness. But most of us have quite a hard time with that because our mind is just too busy. And what it needs to really come to this luminous core is to reach underneath the conceptual mind and become this space underneath the conceptual mind. And so my teacher Dan Brown said it's like a GPS to the luminous core, or like Michael says, a GPS to the yard. So I can just tell you how it works for me and how I learned it from my different teachers. And my teachers were along the way Jack Cornfield, and then really Alan Wallace was the first one who pointed me to awareness as something that already is, which is different from mindfulness or awareing. It's something we can rest into, like in Zen, it's called the backward step. So if you're stepping back into awareness. And I learned from Dan Brown and Locke Kelly, who developed the glimpse practices, and John McCransky, who I love very much, especially in this last year, who teaches on how to experience this nyat, this awareness, not just as wisdom or as a weakness, but as heartfelt, as something that has a warmth, something where caring arises from. And so maybe I find that very important because these are quite strong practices, and one could just get into the far out there-ness of those practices. And it's quite important to realize that what we are touching into, that nyat, isn't just the source of luminosity and spaciousness and timelessness, formlessness, but it's also the source of love or care, which is already there. And so maybe I just wanted to quickly say how I might have distilled Dan's way into awareness of awareness before I lead you into a practice, just so that you kind of know which way this is going, a little bit the map. So it's really important to bring awareness from thinking mind, forehead mind, conceptual mind, even mindful witness, to the body as a whole. So just let your awareness, which usually sits there in the mindful observer, and realize that actually your whole body can be aware. Awareness can be felt as body and body as awareness. And as you intensify the felt sense of this body sensation, it calms down your mind automatically. So it's good to feel it quite with intensity, with a good amount of concentration, while staying at ease. And what you then experience is kind of your own body as energy, and that the boundaries, the edges and boundaries of your body slowly become soft, and the boundaries are kind of wispy and fluid. And then you see that the boundaries are porous and open. And then just kind of surrendering to this softness, to this openness, and let it draw you into oneness with it. And as you do that, as you really surrender and let go into this openness, into this depth, you sense, or you may sense, the glow of awareness around you. You realize it's not just inside of yourself, you're not just a skin encapsulated entity, but there is this glow of the flow, like Michael calls it, within and around you. And there you can recognize, oh wow, I'm resting in awareness. And you might even experience body sensation and awareness and maybe breath as one unified field. You realize it's all one. And as you get to that point, you notice that there is a sense of openness all around you, that the whole field within and around you is aware. And openness is opening into more openness. I remember there was this Indian mantra, Sanskrit mantra that says, from fullness, fullness comes, add fullness to fullness. So it's kind of like that. And then there is this nyard that is experienced luminous and vast, like the sky behind the clouds, or deep and indivisible, like the ocean and its waves. And so you're not holding on to any thoughts. You just let thoughts or feelings arise and let them pass through like rays of light or like a breeze in the sky. And what's really important there is just let everything be, resting in the vast ocean of awareness. And this letting be is so important because it relinquishes, it lets go, it surrenders our ego, our the little thing in us that tries to control. And so whenever we tighten up again, we try to control again and again, we can just relax into this while staying very awake. So it's not trancy or sleepy, it's very much at ease and wide awake. And allowing the unity of openness and awareness draw you into oneness, so that the oneness is doing the knowing and the meditating for you. By letting everything simply be, resting in awareness as awareness, with the qualities of spaciousness, vastness, luminosity, knowing and warmth. And you might just feel some of those qualities. And seeing and acting from that perspective is really what we can learn. And I know sometimes when I can, as the Tibetans say, hold the view and allow myself to stay resting in this awareness, I can see things in a way clearer, more at ease, and with more awakeness. And that perspective is just really precious, actually priceless, because it allows us to take a peek beyond the separate self. And from there, we can experience a radiance, a warmth, a luminosity, and simply just letting everything be, which allows your heart to be wide open. Because the heart clamps down, we get afraid when we try to control, when we are anxious. So as we come to this letting it all be place, our heart naturally opens and there is this sense of warmth. So Let me guide you through a little practice. Make yourself comfortable. And don't feel you have to understand this all now at once, or you have to remember all the steps I said. Not at all. It's just almost more maybe inspiring you to remember, oh yeah, that feels right, or so just take this all very lightly. And we teach this kind of stuff almost every morning, 7:30 to 8. So sometimes it just takes a while to kind of get the hang of it, because it's such a different perspective from our little controlling ego perspective. And so be very patient with yourself. It's really something that becomes natural slowly with time. So make yourself comfortable. Let yourself settle into the sensations in your body. Notice the touch between your body and the chair, the ground. You might feel for a moment the longing of your heart for openness, maybe for awakeness, for warmth and belonging. Just let yourself connect to the longing of your heart. And then find your forehead, thinking mind. Conceptual mind. Be aware of this conceptual thinking mind that tries to figure things out. And slowly allow awareness to sink down, down through your face, your throat, down through your shoulders, to arms and hands and fingers. Awareness filling your chest, your heart. Awareness resting in heart, and heart as awareness. Awareness filling your belly and base of your body. Including your thighs, legs and feet. Every corner, every point of your body felt all at once. And as you feel your body all at once, intensify the felt sense of this body. Feel your body more intensely, concentrated, yet very at ease. As you do so, you might experience your body as energy. And as you're experiencing your body as energy, notice the boundaries of your body. And sense how these boundaries are soft, porous, open, fluid. It is not clear what is inside and what is outside. It's one seamlessly progressing, fluid experience. Let the softness, this openness, draw you into oneness with it. You might feel the glow of awareness all around you, within and around you. Awareness, body awareness, switched on like a light bulb filled with light. Switched on like a light bulb filled with light. As one unified field. You might notice openness all around you. Luminous like the sky, vast. Limitless, boundless. And at the same time deep and indivisible. Indivisible like the ocean and its waves. If there are thoughts, feelings, just passing through, nothing to hold on to. Passing through all by themselves. Thoughts and feelings passing through like rays of light, ephemeral, momentary, just letting everything be, resting in the vast open ocean of awareness. Resting in awareness as awareness. And as you rest as awareness, perceiving everything from that perspective, as phenomena passing through, always resting back into the vastness of awareness, just letting everything be, allowing the unity of openness and awareness draw you into oneness with it, so that the oneness is doing the knowing and the meditating for you. Simply letting everything be. Resting in awareness as awareness. With the qualities of spaciousness, vastness, luminosity, knowing and warmth. Seeing and acting from that perspective. Nothing is separate. All is connected. Simply letting everything be. So simple, so close, so profound, and so good. Just a moment of remembering away. Just a moment of remembering away.
Thank you, Adeline.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you, everybody. Sort of acknowledging that it's kind of hard to go from a meditation, especially a meditation as deep as that, to words, but we have a little time now just to open up for any reflections, any thoughts, any comments, any sharings. And Andrew, not wanting to put you on the spot, but inviting you if you'd like to begin, if there's anything you'd like to share.
From both the nature path or the other path.
Yeah.
Yeah. I hadn't thought of nature as like a non-dual awareness, or at least putting the words non-dual and nature. But yeah, it's funny how, yeah, it makes sense because we are nature and so is it. But um, yeah, I think, wow, hard to use any sort of the words when you're coming out of
Yeah.
that place. And I think that it's the interesting part because it is so much more about the feeling and especially the body feeling it and the remembering it through the body. And in that unity, none of it can be put into concept or words. And so I think as we even try and put it into any sort of conceptual framework, we're missing it. So it's interesting in that because it is such a felt thing. And
Mhm.
um, yeah, I don't know. I just have like a joyous sensation in me and a lightness and um yeah, it's just like very clean and it feels really good. So I
That's
don't know.
beautiful. Yeah. Thank you, Andrew. That's beautiful. And thanks for kind of remembering, for reminding us that how coming into the body and into physical sensation, into bodily awareness, we're coming into something that is just seamlessly one with everything, we've been trying to talk to about, that it's just seamlessly part. It's like a wave on the ocean. It's just like an expression of that indivisible wholeness. So really coming into that felt sense of the body as a whole, or coming in through our senses to a sense, kind of a sensory connection, and then just relaxing back into that and just allowing that. We're entering um, into that wholeness. Yeah, yeah. But thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you.
Love to hear if anyone else has any thoughts or comments. Yeah, please, Sean.
I do. Just a few days ago, I was reading some chants, and the the one chant that I stayed with for a while was I am the drop, I am the drop, I am the sea, I am the sea. So
Mm.
this kind of brought me remembering back to that chant.
Mm-hmm.
As just being part of the whole, being the drop, and then also being totally included in and relaxing into. Um, Thank you.
Yeah, beautiful,
It's
beautiful.
great.
Bye.
That is really about non-duality. The drop and the ocean are both water.
Right.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Sean. Anyone have any other comments or questions or
I just
reflections?
have a little thing. Well, it was amazing meditation that way. It is almost hard to articulate words because you're so calm and in a different place. Um, but I was going to say after last week, I came across something about bees, and Andrew had mentioned how bees had alighted on him, and that apparently bees in Celtic mythology are messengers between the spirit world and the physical world, which I thought was
Mm,
interesting in that. So
that's
that's
beautiful.
all. Yeah.
That's lovely, Mary. And Mary, just to point you towards, I think it's under week one resources, or maybe it's week two, but there's an interview with Wolf and Lisa Wapipa,
Oh.
and it's just a little 10-minute clip. It's called "Listening to the Earth," and uh, Wolf tells a story about bees in that
Oh.
I think you'd enjoy.
That's great. Yeah, I've gone back since I was gone to listen to him, but I missed that one. So I'll
Yeah,
listen.
check that one out. It's really a beautiful sharing from both of them. Really incredible.
Maybe
Right.
before Dalina comes on, I just wanted to say, aren't bees now endangered to be less in the world?
Oh,
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
in a way, it's maybe a bit of a metaphor that we need to strengthen again these
Right.
heavenly messengers,
Right. Right.
these tiny little ones.
Yeah.
yeah. Thank you.
Dalina.
This is continuing on the bee theme. I was going to share it during our sit spot sharing or maybe in the group, but I had a most remarkable experience with bees at my sit spot this week. And I thought of Andrew. It actually kept me safe because I was sitting at my sit spot and I'd never noticed very many bees around before. And then all of a sudden, these bees, like a swarm, came. I even have a little video of it out of nowhere. And it was a little scary, but I remembered what Andrew said, and I just kept breathing and staying calm. And then eventually, this electric car passed by, and then they disappeared again into the ethers. And I was just like, wow, I think these bees were my neighbors all along, and I just never noticed them before. And I've been here so many times now for the last month that they got used to me and they showed themselves. I don't know how else to
That's
explain it. It was
amazing.
just
Wow, that's
remarkable.
incredible. That's incredible. But it's like as though they manifested. They manifested themselves.
That's what it felt like. They just appeared and
Wow.
then disappeared. It was
Hmm.
really remarkable.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. Anybody else got any thoughts or reflections or stories or questions? Just time for one or two more. Yeah. Okay. Well, if not, thank you all so much for being here, and please do check out the resources that are there. We'll have this one up there fairly soon. With a recording of tonight's meditation. I recorded it, so we'll have that up
Yeah.
there as well if people want to listen to it afterwards. Yeah, and hope to see you all again same time next week. So
Great.
thanks so much for being here.
Great. Thank you.
You.
Yeah.
Take
Good night.
care. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Good to see
Thank
everyone.
you,
Thank you.
Michael. Thank you,
Yeah.
Randy.
You're very welcome.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Hi.